to a 4coder stream. Hopefully now free of all audio jankiness, because I decided today that I was too sick of audio jankiness, and so now it should be hopefully fixed. But let's get on with everything else that we need to do. Also, anyone out there who wants to host me, that now is a good time for that. If that was going to happen, because now we're done starting and stopping the stream over and over again. Alright, so first things first, we're going to look at the tree project as usual. So, let's see. There we go. Let's see, we can get rid of this. Yeah, that can stay. Okay. So, I can't remember. But I'd say that I'm probably going to want to deal with, tuning this whole hotspot situation out, because we can move these around. And what I found last time was that there's a bunch of weird behaviors once I start. First of all, like, look, there's something about, like, it just doesn't understand the concept of, like, size quite right. Like, this shouldn't grow like this at all, right? This should have grown bigger than it did, and this shouldn't have grown so big, and it feels like that's either a bug or well, you know, it could really be that, no, the projection should actually be getting smaller here. And I don't totally understand. Is it because of this thing? No, that's turned off right now. Yeah, it feels like something about this is off. Like, I don't understand the math that leads to this being so much longer than the one before it. And then this being even longer. I do not understand the math. So what I want to do, this is something I've wanted to do for a while, is the ability to inspect one branch at a time. So to do that, what I basically would do is say, look, when we're doing the tree skeleton gen, I want to include, just spacing that so that it lines up in a way, and then pretty soon I'm going to add something that's going to cause it to stop lining up anyway, so it'll be kind of a waste. We'll call this like, so basically, let me start with the idea. I want a sort of struct that's like branch info, and in here, one of the things will be which branch, right, that I want to get. And then all the other info, that'll be passed in, and it's kind of a nasty idea that I'm going with here, that you use one struct for input and output, but I really don't care. It's an experiment. Maybe I'll learn a lesson, and maybe it's not a big problem after all. I'll find out for sure when I do it. So, branch info will be like the optional output, and then I want opt output count, right? Insobot just said this is such a high level, and I hope he's saying that the caliber of code that I'm writing, and not the you know, the semantic nature of the language I'm using. Because I am operating at a high level here, but not in terms of away from the... I'm talking about in terms of skill, it's a high level, for sure. Insobot's on the mark, if that's what he's talking about. Alright, anyway, yes, so basically whenever I generate a branch, that branch is associated with some, no, k, what is k? K dot position equals params dot base. Yeah, so each k that I want to get information about, what I'll have to do is say, like, there's a function that takes in, I'll put it here, takes in my optional output array, the optional output count, and then which branch I just did, which will be 0 in this case, and then I'll add the info that that does later. But basically the way this works is post branch info, branch info count, and then index. That's what we have for now, and this becomes for 0 to count, and of course this will all be based on, like, if I actually have optional output to begin with, then do this work, otherwise ignore it. Plus the I. Okay. Okay. So as I loop across, the idea becomes if index equals info which branch, and then here I'll fill in information, right? So the first thing I want to do is just speckle this concept everywhere in this code, because that's the part that I'm already sure I want to do. Whenever I go to generate a branch, whenever I noticed a branch, here, wait, here's k. So right before I increment k, what I'll do is say, okay, k is about to, that's b, k, b, right position, q wrap, k is the child position, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay, so basically, if, and it's the same stuff as up there, so if post, or if optional output, that's the name of it, then post branch info into the array for k, right? Okay, so now I need to remember what information did I want to post, and the answer is I want to post everything about what, right now, well, the thing I'm interested in. That's like a debug framework that I've just set up. So now I can easily just add in information here and here and here, and those places where I put it, and I can fill in information about where things come from. So, for instance, let me explain what all that jibber jabber I just said meant. Here I'm going to want length. I'm going to want, now what else do I have to know? There's, at each point, there's the length itself, the actual length that I wrote down into the branch, and then there's other things. Weight. What happens with weight? Yeah. So there's the actual length, which is weight in this case. There's also hotspots J for real 32 projection towards new P towards hotspot. Right, so in here there's stuff like each of these J hotspots, how much did we get from each one? So really I need in here a sort of real 32 contribution list. That's going to be kind of nasty, so I'll say we'll limit the contribution list to up to 3 items with contribution count, and then let's see. Yeah, so we can post all this kind of information that we want to post. What else do I want? That'll give me the contribution from each hotspot for now. There's also a matter of where did this come from? Towards new P. Theta plus BP step. Right. So I also want to know the step amount. Where the step amount is like the length before all of the other stuff, right? Then what I'll do is I'll just introduce this enum here. Info to post. And we post things like step info, length info, contribution info, and then there, whoops, redo that one, thank you, and count info. So let me do a quick thing real quick, which is, you know, a little redundant, because if it's a quick thing, that implies that when I do it, it'll be real quick. But sometimes you need the force of both the adjective and the adverb. There we go. Alright, so that's good, and now I can add to this the branch, or the info to post type, and real 32 call it X, right? Then I can just switch on my type. Step info becomes, and it's, oh, after that I should break out of the loop. Right here I should take info and plus plus at each step. Info step equals X, break case. Length info length equals X, break case. Contribution info contribution list, square bracket, info contribution count plus plus equals X, break, but only if, we might want to use more than one line of code for this at this point, only if this is less than the array count of info contribution list, right? Then we break out of the loop. Alright, so now it shouldn't compile. Alright. So what did we get wrong here? Missing comma before period. My bad. 271. Need to declare I. Very well. 302. Whoops. 302. If opt output. Okay. So now what we need to do is fill in all of these things. So, step info. Params.initial step. Not strep. Step. We can do this in braces. That's fine. Length info is the same. So for the initial branch, that is the same. Step in the length. For future branches, where is if opt output? Here it is. For future branches, we want to do something like where length becomes, where is it? Weight. Step info becomes BP step. And then I want another if up here in this for loop that says if output, then, and then try to post. So each time we're doing one of those things, and obviously this is crazy inefficient, you know, because we've got like this for loop and a for loop, which is calling a function and a for loop in there. I'm not really trying to be efficient. I'm trying to figure out the right algorithm and then I'll optimize, right? But right now I'm more interested in sort of greedy programming where I get just do whatever I want and pull out tons of information. Sandbox style. I don't actually program like this very often, so it's kind of fun. Contribution info weight. So that'll make sure. Now, what I'm expecting that like either the math should make sense and it doesn't for some reason, or I'm not understanding something about the math that I've set up. Like, it could be that like the math I set up is doing what I think it's doing, but it doesn't have the effect that I expect it to have for some crazy reason, or it might be that there's a bug in the math. So we're going to figure out which of those it is. Right, so when I generate a tree skeleton now, let's see, the ghost skeleton I don't care about. You don't need to give me any sort of info. And that's why that's an optional parameter. But you, I want you to fill up branch info 1 for now. And so then right here, before I call that, I'll put down a branch info, clear it to 0, and then what I'd really like to do is actually take a quick second and put this code into my new separate out the decals just so it doesn't drive me crazy. Skeleton branch info dot which branch equals, we'll make it 0 for now, Alright, so now when we generate this tree skeleton, one of the branches we're pulling out information for. So, the plan is, let me, natural limit. Okay. Yeah, that helps me to read what's happening. So up till here is all generation, and then this is kind of the breaking point where I go into drawing mode. Okay, so here I draw the ghost skeleton. If I'm showing it, then the normal skeleton, then the whole tree. Here's hotspots. Then what I'd like to do is say, well, first of all, if information is never posted, well, okay, it's not a problem. Okay. So it'll basically just be my GL branch info. I want it wherever do the first row end here. Rect.y1. Okay, so what I want is up here, I'd like a real 32 low point equals, well, don't care what it equals, but basically here low point equals rect.y1. I'll include this here too. If low point is less than rect.y1, then again okay. So now I know where the low point is, and I can say that I want it right around 5 low point, and I want this branch info right here, right? Okay, so that's a good start. Of course, it doesn't compile because I haven't got that function written, but let me see if anything else is wrong. Skeleton. Okay. 443. Missing parenthesis before constant. Oh. Yeah, that long list of parameters suggests. Okay, so here's the skeleton count, the ghost skeleton count out, parameters, let's put it there. Okay, so now, grab a copy of this so we can pop it up here. Okay, so now I have a thingy that's got all this stuff. Oh, yeah, that was good. Good words. X step will equal 3, and then what I'll do is at each point I want to draw a line. Do I have like a line primitive set up? I should have. Yeah, my GL line. So I also want a good color for this. I have a sort of deep purple in mind for it. So let's see if I can pull that off. Also, as usual, I don't know how my colors go. Are they RGB, gold, A, or are they ARGB? Blue. Is it over here? Tree gen, gold. Ah, there it is. Alright, MyGL branch info. Brown. Faded gold is 0.5. Okay, so the last thing is A. Gotcha. So, I want a good, healthy amount of red, but not a crazy amount. Maybe actually a little bit. Yeah, okay, that was good. That was good. F, no green at all, and a little bit less blue, and full alpha. I think that might be what I want. And then I do branch info. I draw a line, so my GL line, and I can't remember the signature here. So vec A, so A, B, and then color. Gotcha. Branch info right there. Okay. So basically, it's like I'll just call them A and B literally, actually, and then the color, and then last thing I need is vec2 A and B, where A equals A.x equals x, B.x equals A.x equals B.x equals x. At each line we'll do that. Yes. And then A.y is permanently going to be set to y, and at each step B.y is equal to the info that we are trying to print. So for example, length I'll do first. Boom, 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 boop. Okay, hold it right there. X plus equals X step each time, length, whoops, step, and then there will be a little I equals 0, I less than info dot, what is the name of this? Branch info contribution count. Plus plus I. Right, so now I'm going to go across all those contributions. So then, basically, it's just more of this. Actually, I think what I want to do is go across all of the array count contribution list of info, and then at each point a.x equals b.x, b.y equals info dot contribution list I, and then render the thingy. I, right, did not actually make the I that I said I would make. Boom. Uh-oh. I did it wrong. So, that's close. I want to do, not equals y, but equals y plus that much. There we we go. Now, the fact that that's changing is kind of weird. That shouldn't really change, because I'm just always getting 0. Right, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Okay, that's more well behaved, but those should all be zeros. So that's kind of weird. Wait, no, those wouldn't all... No, yeah, they would be. Yeah, the first one, that shouldn't be happening for. Branch info, so there's definitely something wonky going on. Am I clearing to 0? Because I thought I was clearing to 0. Branch info equals clear to 0. Which branch? Branch info 1. Right. gen.cpp. Post branch info. So yeah, it seems like the contribution info should be 0 for the first branch, right? Because I post here that I'm talking about, and at this point I can switch that to K so that it makes more sense. Here's some information about K. It's the initial step both times, so the first two things on the left should be the same for this guy, and then it comes in here. Ah, these are not K. These should have been K. Of course, K right there is not correct. So what I need to know now is, at this point, when I'm posting information about the length of this potential branch, well, actually, is it K? It might be K, actually. Yeah, it is K. Okay, we're good. Alright, there we go. That's a little more like it. Yes. So now the information coming out looks like what I would expect. This button can go, because it looks like I'm going to leave those forever. Unless I start hiding the buttons. If I'm a little smarter that way, then it would work. Anyway, so this works, this does not affect it, this shouldn't affect it, that shouldn't affect it, that shouldn't, that shouldn't, that shouldn't. Okay. So, step 1, we verified that some stuff makes sense that I've always been kind of suspicious of. So that's a good thing. Interesting. Gotta deal with that someday. Anyway, so, what I want for now is, I want to be able to change which branch I'm inspecting using this little line thing here, right? point plus 5. Okay. So to change it, that means changing this 0 here with something. And basically what I think it should be is that I put in something like something like vars inspecto branch, maybe. And so inspecto branch is well, it's pretty self-explanatory what inspecto branch is. Because inspecto branch, you just put it right there and boom, you got inspecto branch. Alright, so using inspecto branch, I'd like to start by, oh, hello. Someone has said something. Oh, thank you for the compliment on the tree generator. Hello, Sean. You can see in the background my laptop, which is where I do my work on Linux. So that's where all of the fun happens. You know, all of that Linux programming that you've asked me to do. It's all that fun is right there. Anyway, let's see. Basically, I just need a new adjuster. Like this one, because it's an integer adjuster, not a floating adjuster. And the adjuster goes from, let's see, vars. I want it to change the inspecto branch, and I want that to just range from like 1 to 1,000 or something. And let's see. Yep, that should be good. Okay, one other thing I want to do is when I go to draw the tree, I need to know which branch I'm actually looking at. So when I go to draw this skeleton here, I want to, yeah, this one, I want to say that there's like an, well, let's do it this way. How would I do this? Yeah, I think I have to do it this way. You over here, you can just highlight no one at all. But I want this one to highlight the vars inspecto branch. I see some kind of conversation. I don't know. I feel like I missed a beat somewhere. So if someone can clarify if anything was directed at me or not, then I'll be able to respond. Let's see. So, what was I doing? Right. So the skeleton drawing thing, I want to add an option for highlighting. Need the ability to jump to definition right now, but I don't have it yet. There we go. Oh, you want to try to get it running on Linux? I mean, I'm kind of working on that already. I'll just wrap it up. It's not a crazy project. I just, you know, put it off. I've been putting it off, doing tiny little bits at a time. I'll get it done soon. The more important thing is I've got to get a parser written so that I can do things like the navigation stuff that you want, and the stuff that I actually want to do requires the parser too. So that's the thing you'll actually be waiting on. And yeah, I've got a DLL loader for the Linux thing already. That was not one of the. That's not the. I was able to develop that on Windows, so that didn't take too long. Yeah, Abner's got the right idea. I can only deal with so much Linux every day. I have to, make sure I do something. I have to do something non-Linux for a certain amount of time to balance it back out afterwards. Alright, so when it's going through here and drawing stuff, it's doing a bunch of lines. Position X, position Y, child, right, and then the question is what color should it be? And right, normally I look at the paint, but what I want to do now is say if something, do a special highlight color, otherwise do what you normally would do. And that something would be highlight index. If the highlight index is equal to something, I'm not sure what. SSS McGrath asks how good the parser plan. I want the parser to be. I plan to get through. Like, I want it to be able to handle a class. Someday a template, but like that's sort of not something I'm planning. But I want it to at least be able to be like, it knows what a class is. It knows like overloaded functions. It knows inheritance if that happens to be somewhere in your code. I want it to handle like C++ up to templates, and then templates are like a different wall I guess I'd have to cross eventually. But my plan has always been to get at least like, if you're basically using like, C with classes, that should be supported in the first like version of the parser is my plan. Let's see, highlight index, it's got to be either child or vert children. Yeah, I think it's got to be the child that I care about, but top equals 0, 0. But on the other hand, I don't think that's true. K is 0 when I put the first one down. No, yeah, it'd be a child. Okay. Alright, so let's see, child, then I want to do my GL color, something like highlight color, right? And then I'll just pop this up here so that I can find it when I want to change it. Highlight color, let's what the hell, let's make it white. I don't have any particularly good ideas on what color that should be in my head right now. Alright, I don't want to see you. No, I want to see you. White's a bad idea. Okay, blue. Forgot what color the skeleton was. Okay. Oh, I see. Yes. That's not a terribly big problem. Let me just adjust everything over. So I'm gonna put in like 100 here, 100 here, 100 here. Whoops. And 100 here, and that'll move everything over. And then right here, I'll put more width on this. I guess if I'm gonna say 1,000, that's probably gonna be too big no matter what. But I can get at least 200 if I push this up to 210. Oop. Don't need you, but I do need this thing here. Now let's put it on. There we go. Alright, now I can inspect one branch at a time, hopefully. It's a little tough still to get the one I want. I mean, ideally I'd just work on a thing where I can click a branch. So maybe next time I'll forego this adjuster and we'll just make a thing where I can click on branches and get that done with. But for now, let me investigate these numbers and see if they make any sense. So this is claiming that, which one is the big one there? Oh, that should be changing the balance. Oh, I guess, does the first one not care? Okay, it's just too slight. Let me look at just this, right? So I want to look at the effect on the blue branch right now. So, okay. That doesn't matter much. Oh, I have a theory now. Okay. Now let me look at the next branch. I don't want... No. That one. So it's clearly much longer. That right there is that second bar over is the step. If I go back one. Yeah, so the step has actually gotten sizably bigger. Okay. So a couple things. Why did I range this from 1 to 200 when I could range it from 1 to the natural limit that I'm at right now? So skeleton limit, that's the variable I'm looking for. Okay, there's the first dumb thing I did, but the other thing is, I think over here, treegen.cpp, when I set, yeah, so that right there, I'm multiplying by step decay, but the weight, oh man, that still doesn't make sense. The step should be smaller than the length. Okay, so what's happening is, if we look at this again, don't need you, need you to be non-zero, great. Do I have more control now? Is it a little bit easier to control which one I'm on? I want to see what happens as I shrink the number of branches in the tree. Yeah, that's not quite doing what I was expecting. Okay, so this bar here starts right there. I really need to get like fonts in here. So yeah, it's less than the length of this. The step is less than the length of this. But then it can get as much as 3 times bigger than that because, right, and that's why I was doing averages when I did the weights, but that wasn't really good either for some reason. I mean, just straight up dividing by 3 was really bad because these things got much smaller than I want them to be. Dividing by how many things they moved towards, if it was non-zero, wasn't really looking any better. How should I make this work? So the step, it used to be that the step was perpetually decaying. And of course, if this starts smaller, and there's boom, boom. But the problem is that's just not like very realistic looking to me right now, because these joints always get shorter, and you know, real tree. Now they're getting longer, not shorter. So if we say that this is always going to be a fraction of the size of this, for that to be true, it must be that whatever thing comes out, the maximum that could ever happen is that it's pointing 100% of its motion is towards all 3 of these. It seems like division has to be a part of the algorithm, or a part of the math. I just, last time that didn't appear to be very good looking. There was another, like, it had some kind of effect I didn't like. That's not even any better. What's going on? Center branch weight. Oh, that's, yeah, that's not the thing I thought it was. Okay, so it was like, okay, I must have deleted the code that was relevant. Contribution count equals 0. Okay, let's try this again. Pretty sure I didn't like it for some reason, but I can't remember what it was now. Like, it was something like all the trees it made looked exactly the same, was the problem I was running into. Like, you see how they're all... Actually, it's not crazy bad. Certainly having trouble getting very large, though. So here's the first branch. You can see that the step is larger than this length now, and then on the next one the step becomes the length times a little bit of decay, so it gets much smaller much faster because of this. What I could do is ignore the weight in choosing the branch entirely. Right here I'm saying weight. I could just go back to the old way of saying you just relate this to the step. What kind of results do we get from that? So each time the step decays just a little bit, and so the new length is always always getting shorter by that much, but it could be getting longer if you happen to like get close to a hotspot as you go. That's kind of funny because it's based on that range. Um, okay, so the other thing that needs to happen sometime soon. This feels a little better. I still wish that like obviously that's reaching out towards a hotspot in the way I'd kind of expect it to. Um, it seems a little bit shortened. Like those are getting shorter and shorter. And normally what a tree would do is it would stop growing that sooner, right? So maybe I need to increase this threshold a bit. And obviously the fact that it can only do a fixed set of angles is still hurting it a bunch. So I think that's the next big step, is to say that there's more than a fixed set of angles it can handle. But it looks kind of cool now. Looks like it was looking back in the day, but now it's all asymmetric and awesome. Decrease that threshold a little bit. Yeah, it's got issues still. It's only got issues still. Let's see. Alright, so I'm satisfied with this progress. That's about an hour of work on this, so I want to do a little bit of 4coder work right now. So I think I'll save this as the result of our progress on this today. Alright. Oh, never mind. I'll close it. There we go. Alright, so now let's switch to some 4coder work. Now the thing that can get a little confusing here is this 4coder window is not the same as this one. This one here, the small one, has new features. The big one is set aside in a different directory. You can see when I open here, I'm in the main directory. I'm running the 4coder that's in development. When I run this one, it's the one I've set aside in my little Y directory, my Y subs, so that I don't have compilation conflicts. That way I can compile from 4coder the new versions of 4coder. Okay, so what I want to work on right now is basically the whole thing now has command line parameters, and I'll show you what I mean. What? Where did they go? There used to be arguments right here. It's kind of weird. No. Weird. What happened to the solution? Did I accidentally delete my 4coder solution for debugging? Oh, shoot. Right. I had like a message at one point where it's like, oh, this didn't shut down properly. Do you want to restore it? And I hit yes, but I don't know if it worked. Well, I know now it didn't work. So, okay. Gotta redo some of this a little bit. Alright, this is supposed to run in the data directory, Alright, and then what I can do is stuff like okay, didn't mean to delete that. What else is possible? I can do this and this. I can do this, and I can do alright. Interesting. Not what I totally expected. Something went wrong somewhere. Yes, this is behavior I haven't seen. I'm not sure where it's coming from yet. Oh. Well, no, I don't know. Okay, so what have I not fixed in the... Something is still wrong about this solution or something. Something. Open up this. Window handle. Client direct. Blind func. Require. Terminate with nil. Read command line. There it is. So I'm going to pop in here real quick and make sure that everything's coming out the way I expect and that I remembered all the mappings correctly. So there's custom DLL, yes, so D, user file, initial file position, W and P, okay. Plat settings, my custom DLL is strict. 200, 200, 500, 0. Set size, maximize window. Yes, that all works. User file is null. Init files data. Oh, okay. So that shouldn't have caused a bug though. That must be new behavior that I haven't, like, that used to work. So that is probably a bug now. But these files don't exist, which was why I was getting bad behavior. Obviously that shouldn't be what happens. It should just make a new file. Something has changed, and so we'll have to debug that first. But now when I run, you can see I can open it up, and it opened these two files. It opened full screen because I used a capital W flag. Let's see. What else have I got? Oh, if the window's not maximized, then that's its size and position. Because I set the position to be right here and the size to be like that. So, you know, I've pretty carefully exercised the ability of the command line parameters to communicate to various layers of the program, and it's pretty much all working, but we saw that the new file thing doesn't work like it should. Okay, so let's simplify the test case now and look at that error situation. What used to happen here, and what I need to do now is go to app open file. Right, okay. Eventually we get here, and right here the thing is trying to do is command data, that's irrelevant. Where is it? File name? Yes, data basic. Right. Okay. First of all, let me check 14. So that's 5 for that. 10, 14. Okay, 14 is the right size. Good. It comes in here, and it starts opening this. Okay, so I know what's about to happen. State edit. Detect mouse hover status. Oh, Sean, while you're here, let me show you how much of the stuff you asked for that I am able to do. You can tell me if I've completely understood what you wanted. Um, Sorry, I got interrupted in my train of thought because this occurred to me. But when you're looking around for files, right now it's all based on like folders. So if all your code is in the same folder, it would work. Um, Pretty soon I'm introducing like the concept of project files so that all of the code in one project, no matter what directory it's in, gets listed in the same list. And then it'll use the same matching system. But for now, the only way is by directory. But if you're in, say, here, and you're looking at your code, then I can do something like pare it down to all the H files by typing H, right? I can say I want to see everything that has to do with views by typing view, right? Does all that kind of stuff already. I don't know if it'd be of any use to you. I haven't actually used it much, but it even does stuff like if you want all of the stuff that starts with this name and ends with that, you can use star. So it sort of matches the way star works as a wildcard. I don't use that too often myself, but you know that's in there too. So that's like the way name matching works right now, and that's all in there. Other than that, the other things like there's compile in editors in here, but that's about you can't use the arrow keys to move around in it yet, but that's literally like one of the next things on the list of things I gotta do. Let's take a look at this. So I gotta do autocomplete related stuff, and then I plan to get all of the UI stuff in, like to do a big rework on that, and that includes getting the arrow navigation possible. Once this happens, these two stages, those will be like the only things I need to get done before I put most of my focus on the Linux version. And the reason for that is this UI stuff, once it's in place, you know, I'll be much happier with the state of the code because the UI is a little bit nasty. But the UI, once that's there, like it's going my plan for the next iteration of UI is gonna take it to the point where basically all of the UI stuff that you like is going to be possible. The only problem then is getting the thing that actually fills it up with the right data, obviously. So that's like the GDB backend and the parser that need to be done to do that stuff. But also there's the key bindings. I don't know. I've always thought that Visual Studio's key binding thing was confusing, but of course I've always used 2013, so there will be plenty of options for that. Whatever key bindings you're using, you will just very easily be able to fix that to whatever you want. Like the list of warnings and errors, that's this to-do item here, and it's going to be such that there will be like a default thing that'll read the output, and it'll like set aside warnings and errors so that the default will just be that the sort of list it creates jumps you to where those warnings and errors are, but it will also be customizable to the point where you might be able to like assign custom things there. I can't think for sure what you would do with errors or warnings off the top of my head, except like if it's a missing semicolon error, you could literally have it insert the semicolon when you click it, you know. So that's kind of cool, but that's, you know, not too far away. Let's see. Anything else in here? Yeah, so most of this to-do stuff here has to do with non-parser related, anything I can do without the parser, and I don't necessarily plan to finish this because I've been wanting to do the parser for a long time. So as soon as the parser gets my full attention, I'll probably have a lot of the stuff that you're looking for. Anything in here that's important? Oh, it's also low latency. So I noticed that you were talking about characters showing up, and I mean, it sort of seems like a no-brainer to me that it has to be low latent. And like right now, it takes no more than you know, like 1/30th of a second for something to show up on the screen. But my plan is to go like extremely hardcore on that eventually. So the latency on you hit a key and it shows up, it'll be about as low as your monitor can possibly do when it's in there. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. I don't have in here multi-line, is not anywhere on here, but you said like you could do a simple multi-line, and that's much better to me than most people want multi-cursor and like a bunch of crazy stuff, but simple multi-line I don't have any problem with because it's kind of actually trivial. Yeah, okay. So, I thought of that because I was sitting here going through some code, and now I forget what exactly I was looking at. I don't want this up. I don't know why that's always there. That's might be true. I mean, a fix with font does make things like multi-line editing simpler, but I mean, you would have to explain to me the case where that's not true. Most of the cases you showed, like they would have been aligned even even in variable width fonts. Um, like the only thing that would be non-trivial is positioning where your cursor on each individual line if it's proportional, but like proportional fonts are not like required, right? You can just switch to like this version, and now everything's mono, right? So I could, if it comes down to it, I could just say this feature only works in a mono font and problem solved. And mono fonts have a few other optimizations in there, like since it's mono, it can do a few things faster, and it takes advantage of that. I mean, that doesn't really concern, like that's up to me if it does that, but alright, so what I was looking at in here was what happened. Right, so I know it happened. So it made the file, and later, eventually, it's going to find out that that file that it was looking for doesn't exist. But that system is a little bit crazy, so it doesn't necessarily find out right away. This is app binding setup. Get cursor type. Where is this? Sysapp binding. Does that show up anywhere else? No, of course not, because I'm not consistent with my naming. So let's just search for sysapp, see if it shows up that way. What is this case right here? Sysapp binding. Great. Alright, so somewhere in here it goes, is this file ready? Save complete. Nowhere in here does it ever ask, is this file non-existent, which is what it needs to do. So 3620. I don't know, I always use this one and I'm so used to it now. It's actually a terrible font, even for like, it's probably worse than, even if there's advantages to proportional fonts, this one doesn't have those advantages. But I'm used to it, so that's probably bad. What line did I say? 3620. So right here, if exchange file ready, if exchange file save complete, what I want is if exchange file does not exist, exchange binding sysid, and let's see, that's an exchange find file ready. File name, file. So this is pretty straightforward. Exchange file does not exist. Exchange Ooh, there's a question for me. Is there anything in the Linux port of 4coder that is incompatible with OS X? I don't know. I don't know enough OS X to know that in the Linux port of 4coder is incompatible with OS X. Oh, do you mean like is the code like is the port to Linux equivalent to an OS X port? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know enough about that. Sorry, I couldn't be more helpful. I've never in my life programmed on an OS X type computer. So I don't really have any clue how that goes. Okay, so what I was doing was I asked about a particular file, and this shouldn't be too hard, right? It's a matter of Alright, Abner Coinbray, thanks for joining. See you around. You know, another great thing about programming on Linux is that I have to use Emacs again. Like I had to even I just finished uninstalling Emacs, and the next day I was like, you know, I got to turn on Emacs on Linux now. So, okay, if file ID is greater than 0, I'm gonna just sort of do what I did up there, and file ID is less than or equal to files max. File slot equals, I'll just pop you there for now, and then we can do slot equals files plus file ID minus 1 if not slot flags. And now I need to head over to exchange. Where is this? Is this under fored.h? FAEX. There it is. Not exist. Not exist. Okay, so flag. If not, flags exist. If not exist, then result should be 0. And there we go. So that fixes that. Okay. So now we should be able to detect if a file that we've opened doesn't exist. Now before I fix this, there is something else that was kind of concerning. Why is it that when I click on this it freaks out? To file view, step view, cursor move. Is loading. But it is loading. Why would state not include the fact that it is loading? Interesting. So, that's interesting. So, is loading wasn't set, which is a part of the bug. It's not the only bug, but I realized that there were 2 bugs being manifest at the same time, and that I had to take care of both of them. So, I couldn't fix one of them and lose my connection to the other one, you know? So, why is that happening? Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oh well, it's gone now. Can't get it back. Okay, just shut up. Just shut up. You. Rebuild. 127. Okay, that's 137. There we go. If not, slot. There we go. Boom. Boom. App open file background. We get the file, we set it to loading, so now it is loading. So let me do that little trick I do, where I grab a file, take its pointer, and just store that statically right there, because I know it doesn't move around, and watch it as I step through the code. Sean showed a thing last night where he can just ask the debugger to stop as soon as a variable changes. I don't know if that's available. I've never seen anything like that in this debugger, but I've always wondered why it wasn't there, because it's basically the thing I do with my debugger the most often, really. Okay, so I suspect that lower, delayed actions, style change, app sys binding. I suspect that it might not change up until here. Whoa, that said file was ready. Really? I'm curious where you get that impression. It's a good file, it gets that. Is the file ready? No. File does not exist. Oh. Okay. If data, else file create empty. Create from string. Oh, okay. So, I'm going to keep this function because that could become useful someday, but I want to go over here. This is wrong. I already did handle the not exists location, and that has stopped working somehow for some reason. So, file create empty. What I want to do now is walk through that happening and understand what did I just do? Redo it. Okay. Whatever that was weird. Okay. I want to see 3645. Right around that area here. Boom. Okay. As soon as I go to that point, create the empty file, create from string, we clear the state out to 0, so it should no longer say that it is loading. Okay. Synchronize times. How are you feeling right now? File state. Use dummy. No. Font ID. Buffer. It's totally valid. Settings. Name. Data basic. CPP. Data basic CPP. CPP. Basic CPP. They all look good. Set up all this undo nonsense. Result. Okay, so the file now has been created. Make cursor hint. Where does that get called? Draw file view. So it's not drawing a loaded file. Comes in here. Get cursor start. I'm guessing the wraps are okay. So the wraps is null. So what happens there? Okay, I gotcha. File create empty. When that happens, we need to basically do a visit across all of the relevant views and say remeasure if you have this file, right? So that's like fuck you, my stupid bad system. Stop sucking. Okay. So I less than panel count. Is panel count just floating around in this namespace by any chance? It is not. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Boom. Nope, panel count's not good enough. I'm dumb. Okay. So I would need to loop over all existing views. I know this code exists somewhere else, so let me find it. For instance, it exists in 4ed file view, batch, edit, update cursors. Somewhere on here I go, oh, that's going over every panel. View to file view, if current view and not. feel like there's a potential bug there. I'm starting to get an idea of something that I need to do. For now, I'm just going to go with this. Panel count, cursor count, don't need cursor count. Panel count comes from vars layout panel. Current panel. Panel equals vars layout panel. I is less than panel count plus plus I plus plus current panel. Current view, and you've got a file. Then what you want to do is I believe ed file is the one. Okay, so if file equals the ed file, then let's see, over here somewhere it's like remeasure wraps. Measure wraps. View measure wraps. And then there's, of course, system. There's vars mem dot general, and there's the relevant view. Go to 3641. What's the problem here? Awesome. Okay. See if that's any better. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to be. So basically, if the file on the command line doesn't exist, it creates the file. And I can't save it? That's interesting. It's really weird. I thought this all worked, so I'm glad that I decided to demo it, because obviously it doesn't. I'm not sure what made me think I'm not sure what made me think that it worked, or what I changed that made it stop working, or what exactly happened. Interactive save. Okay, it's just save. Got it. Okay. So right there, I want to see when I save what happens. We got that far. File path. Data basic.cpp, size, memory size. So we get file ID right. Push file binding. Mem exchange. Here's the mem, here's the file path. String. Here's the file. Settings. State. Okay, push the file binding. Yes. Okay. Boom. File ready? No. File save complete? No. Again. File save complete? Yes. Hello. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Max 5. Exchange file. Save complete. Binding 6 ID 32. Okay, so the save worked. Why is the star still there? Why is the star still there? Draw loaded, draw file view. Draw file loaded. Draw file setup bar. Right, that's not what I want. But what happens with bar after that? Draw file bar. Line number. Append to that. Append to that. Line number 1, size 3. True. Okay, great. Line number, right. Not 3, 1. Okay, so it says line number 1 there. Draws that. We have a file, which is kind of like redundant because we already know that we have a loaded file. So that's very old code. This if right here, that can go. But before I do that, we go in to get the sync, and write time is 0. Sys write time is 0. Ooh, that's weird. So when I save, whoops, didn't mean to do that. That's fine, that's fine. That's fine. Don't really need you to keep stopping for now. Let me kill this for now, and that was an empty file, which is kind of weird. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, so this is like doubly weird because I'm doing data slash basic. If I just did basic, I bet it would work. Shush, all of you, shush. Hello, save. Okay, so the problem is that there's such a thing as a file that you can't open for writing because the directory doesn't exist. So basically what I need 4coder to do is that when it goes to save, if the directory doesn't exist, it needs to be smart enough to create and save into that directory, I think. Unless anyone thinks that shouldn't be a power that it does, that it should say, hey, you tried to open a file that's not in that directory. But I think that that's what I'll do. So I'm going to add that to my to-do list. Because I kind of feel like calling it quits for this part of the stream. Create directories when saving. Miblo says no, that shouldn't be true. So create directories when saving or offer error. offering an error is easier. If that's all I have to do, then I can do that right now. Maybe right now I'll just say that that's an error, and then someday someone will complain about not being able to do it, and I'll add the feature then. Okay, so let's try that. So to offer up an error like that, what I would need to do is when I try to open one of these files, system save file, file name, data size. Perfect. Save complete. Now what I want to have is this should be able to return an error, right? System save file. It does return an error. It returns 0 if it can't open the file for creation for any reason. So if this completes if this completes successfully, do this. Otherwise, save. Now what I need to do is revisit fored.h where these fex things do live, and it's fex save failed. Okay. Save failed. And then what I have to do is on this guy's side, save complete. I see. Okay. Or exchange file save failed, exchange binding sysID. Well, I'd really rather not do it that way. Because I need to know which one of these happened. I can't just plop them together. Although I guess, yeah, it's hard to say because it's very similar behavior for the most part. I guess what I really want is to add right here-ish, like, failed equals 0, and then right here it'll return whether or not this is a failed version. That way I can at some point say if failed and do some other stuff a little bit differently, but mostly file int star failed. Whoops, not under file save, wrong spot. Save complete. Save failed. Then, let's see, failed equals 0. Failed equals 1. Seems like that should probably be smarter. Did we complete? Then a 1, otherwise a 0. Okay, cool. So that's good. Why am I using B32s and ints together? I think those ints are just mistakes. Those should be I32s. Interesting. Interesting. Anyway, ignoring that for now. That is kind of cool. So now it can detect errors here, but I'm not actually going to handle that yet because I need to detect this particular error sooner. Saving error. Now what? Right? Okay. Now the other thing I need to do is I should check the existence of those files right away if they're launch files and ignore them somehow. Let's take a look at how we might be able to do that. It's a little bit tricky because read command line. When this happens, the output doesn't actually contain the list of files in any way. So the easy thing to do is to like pass in as parameter like a pointer to a character and a pointer to an int, so that it can pass back to me how many files, that like the array of files, and then I can check them right here in the system and then make sure that they all exist, and then any of them that don't, remove them from the list and pass that array back in. But that's a little bit of weird like back and forthing that like it requires yet another function that where I pass in those files back. Could also just have this thing edit that list. Okay, right. So we're gonna have, okay, perfect. What am I having there? Char file files. Yeah, char files int file count. Files file count. And what I'll do is right here we'll get the files and the file count passed back to us. For.h. So before the CL params, after plat settings, go, that's weird, char star star files, I32, I did int over here again, I32 star, that should be char star 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 files, char I32 star file count. .cpp, read command line, very good, init command line settings. Okay, so the only thing I have to change is right here at the end, files equals vars settings dot init files file count equals vars settings dot init files count. And of course what I actually want to do is pass these things, right? Which means that, oh geez, it's a whole nother layer. So it's like, this is a pointer to an array of files. This is a pointer to a count. I want both of those pointers to be set by this. So it's another, wow. That's going to be the first time I've ever used a quadruple star. That seems almost like too much. I have to, like, not like it's too much for any particular reason. It's just, is that actually right? This here is a pointer to files, which is char star star star. Right? The reason files is char star 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 is it's a... Okay, that one is overkill. Definitely. Okay, got it. Got it. Got it. This one needs to be... But the pointer itself doesn't have to be edited. Right. So that's okay, it's 3 stars and 2 stars. Right? Because that's a file count pointer. And I need to have it edited. I need it to be set to point to something. So I'm passing a pointer to that pointer into the function, and then I'm using that pointer to set this pointer to the count. Right, yes, okay. That way that I can edit it through that pointer. Okay, we have the plan now, people. So in here, files is just gonna go like that, because that one doesn't need a pointer to this, but this one is a pointer to this one so that I can edit the count. Okay. Alright, so now what happens is we come here, and if we get to here, what we want to do is do a loop across file count plus I. And what I'll really do is I'll pull this up one layer, and we'll do j equals file count. Right, and this will be j for now. So while I is less than, well, that should actually be end, because the way I normally do this is j will also be 0, and then what will happen is at the very end, file count will get set to j, and then what happens is we do something that's along the lines of if thing is actually file, then files I equals, or files j equals files I plus j, right? Now, system check file can be made, right? So if this file can be made, and that's like that, right? Yeah, okay. Now let's go up to system save file. It's going to be quite a bit like system save file, except there's not going to be any work done. It's just going to be seeing if it can create the file, and then closing it right afterwards. System file can be made. G 1586. And this is why you never declare your thingies inside of the for loop thing, because you always end up needing them outside of the for loop thing. Done. Okay. So that's making basic because it's easy to make basic. But what if I asked for data basic, which we know is not a directory that actually exists? It shouldn't be able to do that one, right? So then nothing should show up. Oh yeah. Alright. Good day. Good day. Alright, so I think that's enough 4coder stuff for me now.